Are you an entrepreneur or ready to become a boss? Welcome to Hawaii Boss, the business podcast made in Hawaii, where you will hear from island movers and shakers on who they are and their impact on our state. And now, step into the office of your host for Hawaii Boss, David Pettyjohn.
Aloha, everyone. Welcome to Hawaii Boss Podcast. This is your host, David Pettyjohn. Very fortunate today on the podcast to have with us Ms. Kiran Polk, the Executive Director of the Kapolei Chamber of Commerce. Kiran, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, David, for having me today. Appreciate it.
You bet. So listen, Kapolei, leeward side. It's Honolulu. It's not Honolulu. It's different. It's a different place. You know, it's a small little island, but there's different places all around. You work there. What's your claim to fame?
Well, you know, it's definitely different. And you probably heard of West Side Pride. It exists and it's a beautiful thing. But we are very proud of who we are on the West Side. And I've actually been fortunate. I've worked out in West Oahu for the past 17 years in some shape or form. And my family actually has lived out there since the early 90s. So I have definitely roots. I understand it. I've lived it and breathed it, but we definitely have a pride about what it's like out here on the West Side and what we do and who we are. And we have a different identity to the townies.
What do they call? Yeah. So townies, and then there's Blue City. Is that what it is? Tell us is there names, different names?
Yeah. You hear the second city of Kapolei, you hear, West Side, Ava Beach, right. It has its own reputation, and there's a difference between Ava Beach and the Waianae Coast. And, so we all have different, but it's all coming from a good place. And, I'm very proud to have to represent our business community. And we're the voice of Kapolei, running the Kapolei Chamber of Commerce. I've been the executive director for about 6.5 years now. And
wow.
And it's a fun thing to do, but it's also very important to me just to make a difference and help our business community and our community at large. I love it.
So we want to find out where that came from. Now, I understand you're an Army brat, and so you grew up. Your family's from here.
Air Force brat.
Oh, no, I'm that's a mistake. A military brat.
Yes.
And I assumed. Well, my wife is an Army brat. That's why. And I met her when I was in the Army. Her dad was in the Army. And so we met in North Carolina. So, I mean, you must have been all over the world. I mean, as an Army or a military brat, what are some of the places that you've been?
Yeah. So, well, my dad, was fortunate. He had 2 tours of duty here at Hickam. He flew C-130 transport planes. His squadron actually at Hickam it's interesting. They actually would go out into the Pacific and get the Apollo capsules and retrieve them and such. So he was stationed here for 2 tours, and then we were stationed in Germany, Rhine-Main, Germany. So
where in Germany? My wife was also a long time ago, but when she was young.
Near Frankfurt, at a base that actually doesn't exist anymore. They closed it, called Rhine-Main. So lived in a few other places. I was born in Little Rock, Arkansas. I don't remember it. It's part of being there, but I was fortunate that a good chunk of my childhood was spent here in Hawaii. I was able to grow up here. My mom's side of the family immigrated here from the Fiji Islands. She was born and raised there. So I definitely have roots in Hawaii, and I'm proud to call it my home. And I've lived other places. I went to because we moved around, I also lived in Denver, Colorado, and that's where I went to high school and college, and then worked there for a time before I moved back to Hawaii in 2002. So almost 20 years.
Wow.
That I've been back here in Hawaii. So long time.
Well, there's a lot of people from Hawaii that live in Colorado too. It's like Las Vegas, but Colorado too. It seems like there's a hub for. I know it's much too cold. So so then this experience, you're out there. What were you doing in the mainland, and after school? And sounds like you had some continued work. You developed
So it's
skills out in the
interesting.
field there.
I was in communications, and marketing and PR has always been my strong suit, my interest. But I did work in the real estate and development field for quite a big time, and specifically property management. So I did marketing and training for a national property management company, traveled to 13 states across the country.
Wow.
And so right before
They call
9/11,
that a road warrior. A road warrior.
Yeah.
And it was as glamorous as they say it is, all the travel and the hotel and everything.
Well, not at the, no, I mean, for a while, it was a great experience. Don't get me wrong. I'm very appreciative. But it's definitely, when I had the opportunity to move back to Hawaii, I was just so excited. So I worked in property management for a while. I actually, when I first relocated back here, I managed some of the largest properties in the state, including one in Eva Beach, which is now known as Kapalina. It was at the point that time Iroquois Point, old Navy housing that was converted to market rentals. So I have and then I just kind of shifted from that and went back into community relations and PR, and like many people, you sometimes shift in do career shifts, and that's what I did. And I've been doing that ever since. I helped open the Kroc Center.
Okay.
So I was on their opening management team, and then
Rick and the team over there at
Kroc Center. Rick. Yep. And so helped them, work with them, and then I worked for a city council member for a few years before I stepped into the chamber role. And also, aside from the chamber, I do some consulting for community relations, and and then I also am the editor for an annual publication called Kapolei Magazine. So that's a lot of fun too.
So where do you find time for all this? So writing, again, an annual magazine, it seems like, it's just once a year, but it seems like, putting a magazine together seems like a lot of, you must have to love that. There must be some sort of passion of yours. It's about, tell us about that. Yeah.
It's about loving Kapolei and the community, because that's a part of it, right? So it does take about 6 months. I do have a writer. Pacific Business News publishes the publication. It comes out in November. So I'm about actually to get started on it really soon. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's kind of a if you go either onto James Campbell's website, kapolei.com, there's an issue of it there. And there's also one on the Kapolei Chamber website on our homepage. But it gives kind of a snapshot of what's happened in the last year in the Kapolei region, and what's coming up in the next year in terms of development, growth, what's really going on.
Some look forward, some vision and things like that, some of the plans that maybe the city and the different organizations have. And so it does take some time to gather all of that information. Yes. So you must have this, having, your work that you do, you must have this sort of wide network of, being involved in Kapolei on that side. How does your Rolodex, is it all on the computer now, or is it, how do you keep, do you have one phone that has all the important and perfect? The
phone is definitely important. No, I'm the connecting point. I can tell you a huge part of what I do, both in the chamber and just in general. I connect people, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, helping people. What about this? How do you know who I should talk to?
Right.
And whether it be in person, whether it be on emails or text, I mean, it's a constant piece of what I do, and it's fun.
Well, now tell me this though, chamber used to be a little bit more fun when you guys could get together. The chamber, the events and the activities, that's where really, and that's what I want to find out a little bit more about, how are you guys dealing with that? And then maybe a little bit of insight on how you work a room when you go into a room, like a new person.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So when I stepped into the role about 6.5 years ago, one thing I noticed that all the networking mixers, everything, the connecting pieces were all in town. Everything was, the Hawaii Chamber, the Pacific Business News, all the business networking groups really most of them were in town. And so I started launching a Pauhana networking events. We were having pre-pandemic about 4 to 5 of them a year. And they were basically sold out, 150 to 200 members each time. Huge benefit, where they'd be sponsored by different organizations, and it'd give our businesses an opportunity to showcase who they are, but then also, of course, our members to connect with each other. And I can honestly tell you, David, I've had everyone from the small business all the way to the executive side. I made a meaningful connection in one of your events. So extremely popular. We also had luncheons with information, elected officials, leaders of the rail, and then also different businesses that are opening projects, workforce development initiatives. And speaking of workforce development initiatives, that's another big part of who we are at the Chamber. We work closely to try to connect. That's another connecting point, connecting our businesses with our education folks. We had up until the pandemic, as well as what we call the Student Career Expo for Campbell and Kapolei. And we bussed 1,300 freshmen from both campuses onto the UH West Oahu campus. And it was really cool. They got to interview 80 employers and explore and see what kind of careers, because they have to choose their pathways in high school, their freshman year. And so it allows them to interact and say, if I wanted to go into broadcast media, David, what do I have to do? What does that mean? Like, what kind of schooling do I have? What does it look like?
And these partners also help these schools as they need, internships and things. And then by the time if they're more involved at this lower level from the 9th grade, then by the time when they hit their senior year and they go, what am I supposed to do? Actually, they've already been trained with a specific company and what their expectations are. And the companies can pick sort of the cream of the crop from the schools.
Work-based learning.
Right.
Absolutely. So we were the first to actually do an expo like that. We were really excited, and the first in the state. And then Superintendent Kishimoto said, "This is amazing, Kiran. This is great." They did it in Kauai, and now they have a virtual version that they're doing for statewide. So exciting stuff. It was fun to be first, and it was fun to take it to the next level. So that's just kind of a snapshot.
Yeah, but the state takes over. They don't necessarily take care of the Kapolei side, though.
No, we still do
then
our
you
own
got to
thing.
still have your own. Okay, yeah, okay.
So we're excited when we can go back. We've taken everything virtual too on our, some of our networking, our information going out virtual as best as we can. For our
because a lot of people, even your businesses, sometimes they're not tuned into that. The technology piece isn't their forte. They've got other hands-on type of business, but then connecting in this way becomes difficult. So now that we've got vaccinations and things happening, where do you see yourself with, sort of these regathering, or do you see that?
Yeah, we'll start transitioning into some in-person stuff later. We continue to do what I call talk stories. I stopped calling them webinars a long time ago. People don't want to go to webinars, but they're talk story sessions. And we have good, pretty good turnout, our elected officials, different members of the community, and just information sessions. Just to give you an idea, I have one next week about homelessness with IHS, US Vets, and a bunch of our service providers for our businesses. We've got our elected officials doing a recap on the district in a couple of weeks. So, and
it's specific to your area.
Specific to our area, Kapolei Nova. And so, definitely we have focused programming. So we kept it alive on virtual. Will it be fun to be back in person? And absolutely, we'll get back there. But in the meantime, we're definitely doing what we can to serve our businesses. But, we just exciting stuff. Like I said, it's not just about connecting. We've got, the workforce development piece. We had
I understand you've been working on sort of abroad with a greater community, a task force of sorts that sort of maybe is guiding your guys' focus for the next little bit of time. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this is brand new, hot off the press. It actually hasn't been widespread launched yet. So you're one of the first.
All right.
You're one of the first people to hear about it.
Awesome.
We all sat down with the mayor and some of the city council. We're still meeting with some of the elected officials about it right now, but I'll share with the kind of snippets of it. We see, just from what I share with you, can tell on the West Side, we really are groomed to help in revitalization. And that's really what the next few years post-pandemic are going to be about. The president has put forth money in the American Relief Act to do such things. There's other stuff in the works too. And so we just really see that West Oahu we're just poised to be that entity and that group that hold our community to really elevate. And,
Well,
we've got.
I think there's a lot of traffic beginning to go that way, so they don't have to go into town. I moved over here this last year from the Big Island, but half my family had to stay just because of cost of living and different things. My girls wanted to finish school over there. But every time I see when I come back is that all these construction workers coming from the Big Island to come over and work. Where are you going? Eva side. They're all heading over there because it's blowing up like it's like a rose is blooming over there. And so, but there's some question though, all that housing and stuff like that. Now you're saying with this task force, you're looking at maybe putting some structure around that, some infrastructure.
Yeah, so just kind of backing up a minute, you're absolutely correct. There is a huge influx of growth, and it's actually a long-standing policy of the county, the city and county of Honolulu, to perpetuate it or to push the growth out to the west side. Many decades. I mean, it's really what is supposed to happen. We're supposed to grow out there, and we are. We have, in terms of housing, there's multiple housing projects, including Ho'opili's 11,000 homes being built right now. And
so it's no longer a bedroom community for Honolulu. It's its own community. It's its own place, its own culture, its own nature, its own services, resources.
Exactly. I mean, we really have, some of the resources that you have in a city, and we're getting there. And I think that we're in a prime opportunity to really grow and lead the effort in these revitalization efforts, because we have the opportunity to do so. So with all that being said, we're strategically positioned. And so we looked at that and said, we definitely need, one of the things too, is we need more jobs and more opportunity on our side. Traffic's a huge issue.
Sure.
Some of our residents spend pre-pandemic three hours.
Isn't the rail the answer?
That's not the only answer.
Okay,
and
that's one answer in process. Okay.
And I've always told people it's not just one element that's going to fix it. We had a job fair for 9 years called Hire Leeward, and it's about connecting Leeward residents with Leeward jobs. We've now turned that platform into a digital platform, and we're transitioning it. But that job fair, just to give you an idea, David, there would be, the first time we had it, 3,000 people showed up. Wow. We had it was a traffic jam. People called in sick to work to find a job closer to where they live. And I've had people come up to me crying saying, Kiran, thank you for doing this. I found a job closer to home. I can take my daughter to play soccer. I couldn't do that before. So there's multiple solutions for the traffic, but definitely bringing more jobs, creating an environment where people can open their own business that they've always wanted to. A lot of people are doing that right now, post-pandemic. And you're seeing that. So
any stories that stand out as people, you as a chamber of commerce, everyone is you don't want to highlight anyone in particular, but some of the businesses maybe that during this year were able to launch and maybe a success story.
Actually, absolutely. And that's happening, and it's burgeoning and about to happen. And so that was what grew our task force. And so we put together this task force. Like I said, it's brand new, and we have about 6 priorities that we have outlined, and they're really specific, and some of them involve, some of that relief funding. And so we're working close. We just met with the mayor last month, the end of last month.
Rick Ledgiardi.
Yeah, and I know he was recently on your show.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, great. He's very business focused, seems.
Yeah, absolutely. And he loves the West Side. He's been out in our area and really engaged. So we sat down with him, met with him, talked story with him, and shared this vision that we have. And then we, like I said, we're meeting with the other elected officials and city council members now. But we told the mayor we really want, in these relief funds, I think there's like $375 million set aside. And there's a portion of that is designated for a community navigator. And that's really an organization or an entity that would help navigate, in different communities where these funds go or how it's administered, and also just even make it drive down the path it needs to go to. So we're working with his administration to, that's one of the things we'd like to be considered for the city to designate the chamber as a community navigator.
Well, sure. And they look for those resources when they come, any politician or government or whatever, they look for those organizations that are prepared for this kind of thing, that are prepared to be the resource provider. once is okay. It's like a grant, someone who writes for a grant, and then they have to make sure that that grant gets, completed the way it's supposed to do. Same thing if you, have access to these resources, there's certain requirements, and only certain organizations know what those requirements are and how to execute them and do those things. And you feel the chamber is sort of uniquely
and we're the connecting point. I mean, we may actually have community-based organizations who we partner with to do some of that administration piece, but we're the connecting point for sure.
Of all those across multi-disciplines and multi-businesses and okay.
Exactly. Right. So that's one part of it. And the other thing, and in our first priority we looked at, we're like, we just really, really need, you're talking about the small business growing. We really need like this enterprise hub for, we haven't been able to have the co-working space and the maker spaces out on our side. We've had a few small ones try, but it's really hard to pencil out the numbers. So one of the things that we're talking to the mayor about and to the administration, and just to see, how can we maybe have some kind of community working spaces, take some funding to get it launched and kick-started. And then I think we'll be able to, put it into a private entity. This is all about not just city funds. This is about connecting our private and our public to work together. Right.
So they can bring resources to bear so that they have skin in the game. So they're not just expecting the government to take care of everything, but that the government says, listen, we can't take care of everything. So, but if you're willing to partner with us, then the joining of those two resources, like you say, navigated or well strategized, or how we're going to roll this out, then they're going to partner.
Right. So we're hoping to get this enterprise hub launched. So that's one of the things we're working on right now, just seeing what the viability of what we can do and how we can do it. And then, some of the other things I mentioned, workforce development, that's another huge piece. So many of our workers were displaced from the hospitality industry, some of them from Coalina, but some of them from town. And again, they were commuting in the traffic. But they're actually pivoting and changing career paths and going into skill trades or healthcare or, IT, and they need skill sets to do that. So in order to do that, they have to retool and get these micro credentials or have apprenticeship opportunities so that they can gain some income while they're retraining themselves. So we're really, working close with the UH system, both on the community college level and the university level. I mentioned UH West Oahu.
West Oahu has great programs, great bachelor's programs that are very needed right now. Healthcare administration and different safety management and organization. So real key, great program, great school.
Absolutely. And Chancellor Benham is amazing. She sits on my board of directors, but she's also chairs our education and workforce development committee. And so she's involved in our task force, helping us kind of navigate and direct on that. So we're working hard to make sure that we, possibly we might be able to get some scholarship funds and also find opportunities that match with our business community to drive that forward. And then some of the other priorities we're looking at in this task force include, people don't realize this, but there's city land in the middle of what we call downtown Kapolei that's sat dormant for some years. That this is the time. Let's find the private entities that are ready to build on it and get some growth and opportunity out there.
Well, I saw that there's some new development across the street from Walmart over there.
That's actually a federal Veteran Administration home. It'll be like a care home for veterans that will happen. But there's lots of stuff that happening, whether it be, you'll see. Things are definitely.
So tell me, that area over there, I know that it used to be sort of, they'd have fairgrounds, and that's part of the fun of having like these open spaces where every year the fair would come and different stuff. So again, those unique sort of things that, we start building over everything. Where are those unique spaces? And I think those are part of your plan as you're creating and growing. How do you make sure that you have all those unique spaces?
Well, if you look at the EVA regional plans, and this is where the city comes into play. They definitely have specific plans in their insights for their regional parks. There's regional parks that haven't been developed in Kaleloa and other places. And Kapolei Regional Park still is a huge footprint in the middle of our city. So there's definitely opportunity in places for that. we again are destined to be the opportunity for growth. And will there be public spaces? Absolutely. That's not part of city planning. So that's in the plan.
Sure.
But kind of going back to our task force, so that's just, we have the space that's owned by the city, and we want to just stimulate growth and find economic opportunities to build and grow on there. Broadband, I mentioned that the economic or the enterprise hub.
Sure.
Huge disparities especially on the Waianae coast for
that's
broadband.
Important for connectivity for all the business that we do right now. If you've got bad internet, you're down for maybe you're down and you can't move. And then you try to get a project going and you can't. And
it's a matter of connectivity and also economic disparity. Like we just also have, we have the largest concentration of Native Hawaiians in the state, and it's on our side of the island, and there's economic challenges, so the cost is higher for internet service on our side. So these are the things we want to kind of cast a spotlight and get the assistance we need to build better infrastructure and just find support for our community. And then the other couple of last pieces of the task force, one of them, tourism is, of course, will still have its place in Hawaii, no matter how much you hear about people reimagining tourism, and that's a big part of it, and it is being reimagined. Well, we want to also look at that. Okay, what does that look like? And let's really kind of connect it to our Kamaina. And it's interesting, David, a lot of our visitor industry is evolving and changing a little bit. And you look at the from my friends in the hospitality industry have shared with me, they're noticing that many of the millennials that come, and just the different generations as things change, they're not just going to the beach and sitting and having a Mai Tai near the pool and doing those kind of things.
Getting a matching muumuu and shirt,
It's not about that. And they're staying longer, first of all. We're seeing a lot more of the extended stays. And they're getting out and being a part of the community, whether it be a cultural experience or volunteerism, going out and volunteering in a local effort, environmental issues, just all those kind of different experiences. And we have them on the West Side. We have all of that on the coast and everywhere. So we really want to, pay some attention to that and so that's part of our task force too, is, we have to evolve and learn from what we just went through and grow it.
And that has, and that's great that you bring that up, because I think this pandemic has really required people to really reassess everything, because you couldn't continue on the same plan that you had, just a year ago. Everyone has had to go, okay, we can't do it this way. So now they've had to really take a deep look and say, and let's be real practical, like what can work right now, and what things can we affect change on now. Having these stakeholders together and being willing to get to the table, that's really a first step. So I think that's amazing that you've been able to have these meetings and have, this vision and direction.
And it's working with the city. And the last one, before I go off the subject, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our last priority is the film industry. There's in the works right now to build a film studio out in West Oahu. And as you may or may not know, the Academy of Creative Media at UH West Oahu has just been built. They're about to open it up to students. I toured it a few months ago. Amazing facility, just amazing. And so the film, Hawaii Five-0 filmed out there for years and years. Magnum's been out there now, and I think there's a huge impact on our economy that the film industry has, and we're going to see it grow on the West Side. So we definitely want some attention focus there. So those are kind of just the fun things that we're working on, and just we want to be front and center, and we are front and center, and so those are some of the things that we're working on in our task force.
Well, it takes leadership from anyone to even just putting a task force together, setting an agenda for how we're going to meet and talk, what are the important things, filtering through all of that and stuff. So sometimes it's complicated in things. Another thing that sometimes our audience might want to know as they're learning and they're maybe new, sometimes we have our audience that how do I get, I'm new, I'm kind of fresh, and maybe I'll go when I go into a room, maybe I'll hang out with a person I know. What are some good icebreakers or some things how do you work a room as they say in the old days of, you go into a function, maybe there's 100 people there. Where do you start for a new person coming in?
It's funny because I actually had a few years back, I actually had someone come and teach a group how to network. And it even started just with the name, like people, recognize reading the name tag and remembering the name. An old trick that I learned years ago, I had a friend who was a bartender. And this is back in my early years. And he used to tell me, he says, Karen, if you want to remember somebody's name, you use it 3 times in a sentence when you first meet them. So David, how's it going? Nice to meet you. My name. So David, what brings you here? You use it 3 times. You are so much more likely to remember their name. So
that's a great trick. I tell people all the time for everybody.
It's a hard thing to remember people's names, but if you use it right away, you're that much more likely to have some a semblance to remember it. So, but yeah, it's just getting out there. I encourage my members to, when we have networking events, just work the room and talk to people and talk story. Don't sit in the corner and
don't be afraid. Yes, you're there. Naturally you're a part of a business. You have something to offer, and some people, because people are humble. I think a lot of people who own businesses and, they want their work to show their sort of who they are and things. And so people sometimes, it depends what kind of business they're into, but it's okay to get out of your comfort zone. I think maybe that's it. In a room when there's new people, getting out of your comfort zone can be very hard. When they say when you're giving a speech, you're supposed to, imagine that everyone's naked or something like that to make it comfortable. But you go into a room, I don't know if that would make me feel more comfortable. But how do you kind of break the ice and let people know that, maybe people aren't sure what to say, again, just asking their name, that's perfect. Simple questions about, what is it that you do? What is your business?
Sharing.
Find about, and then start talking about those, those common things, and they come real easy, especially if you know how to, if you're dealing with budgeting, or you're dealing with staffing, or, hey, you having a hard time, hiring people, or, oh no, we haven't started hiring yet. And
sharing experiences, that's really about it too. We've done some virtual networking at the chamber. I call it Kapolei Connections. They're very small. I have 1 or 2 of them a month. And it's really a dozen people on Zoom, because that's all you can do. And we just let them talk to each other and share, hey, this is my elevator speech, and let me talk about my business for a couple minutes. And they all have some connection at the end. There's, I met this person, and
it's almost like Toastmaster a little bit. That Toastmaster, have you ever done anything like that where they have to learn how to do public speeches and things like that?
Yes.
Do you recommend that for people?
Oh, no, that's a great thing. I mean, I mentioned to you, I did communications. I did Toastmaster when I was younger, and I think it's a great opportunity to come out of your shell. And there's some good organizations out, great clubs I know on our side, Toastmaster.
Right, because they come in and, there's certain different types of speeches, and you learn how to give them, and then, it's a supportive audience, and they also show you how to run a meeting, sort of do some different things. So yeah, these are skill sets that you don't really normally come by when you're.
And there's other groups in that, I was a member of the Rotary Club of Kapolei for years. The only reason I resigned is I got too busy, and I'm there to support them honorary now. But that's another
Rotary.
Great
I have been same thing. I have to add, as you talk about Rotary, it's a great service organization, but there's a high requirement of participation, or else you get
for
big.
But for those who have the time, that's a great way to meet people and a great way to get involved.
And really build a relationship and serve too, because they're great service organization. Right.
Yeah. Service above self. So exactly. So yeah, there's all kinds of ways to do that. And I encourage it. And that's part of what helps your business grow, and part of who we are at the chamber. And I can't wait to do it back in person again, and not just on a screen, for sure.
Well, Kiran, thanks for, all that you've shared, the wealth of knowledge about everything that's going on in Kapolei and the West Side out there, and your vision and the task force and the things that are happening, and also just the wealth of knowledge that you bring from your experience. And And so glad, but before that you came and were able to spend time with us, but before you go, we have the Pauhana Friday. We kind of relaxed a little bit. You're our eyes and ears out there in Kapolei. So we need to know, where to go if you want to have a little bit of fun out there. So tell me, if you were able to go to a nice restaurant and you wanted to go to Kapolei, where would you recommend? One restaurant that you'd go to?
Well, it's hard to pick one. And
I know everyone says that.
You have to understand, because I have multiple members, so I don't want anyone to feel slighted.
What are you hungry for right now that you can get in Kapolei?
I can tell you this, on a Friday afternoon, if you have the opportunity to go out to Koalina and sit and have a drink and watch the sunset, I have to say and some poo-poos, it's a beautiful experience.
You can get some poo-poos. Hey, what's your favorite poo-poo? If you I love a poke. Some sashimi is always nice, but do you have something?
No, I'm with you. I like the sashimi and some sushi. But it's just the experience. But there's definitely some great restaurants out in Koalina, and there's some great ones. Kamakana Li'i has some great spots too. If you don't necessarily need to watch the sun go down outside.
Sure.
But we have a ton of restaurants that are just great. But yeah, there's something about sitting and watching the sunset on the west side that you can't beat it. For sure.
It's beautiful out there. It's drier out there. You don't have as much of the rain interference and things like that, but it's beautiful. Beaches are nice and white, plenty of blue water.
And you might see the green flash. I've seen it out in Makaha. It's a beautiful thing.
Okay. So now after hours, how's the nightlife out there? Everything. I spent. Does it close at 9:00 or
we're definitely a family-related community more than anything. I can't say there aren't any of the small little bars and places to go, but we're not Waikiki, nor do we ever want to be. And yet there's some amazing places to go and connect and hang out with friends and family, and some live music spots here and there. So there's places to go, but it's definitely different in that way. I think it's you have more of a shared experience with being out on our side.
What are some of the normal big events that used to happen out there that are maybe coming back around? What's something that we should be looking forward to coming up?
Oh my gosh, there's a lot of stuff. I know, going back to Koalina, they've had some big events over the years. They have a children's festival every year. I think I was just talking to Kamakanali'i the other day, and they have like a poke festival coming up. Kapolei Commons, they have great things for the kids. They have like a touch a truck festival in the middle. I think it's later in the year, where the kids can go and see all the big trucks. Just a lot of family stuff too.
Yeah, there's all the outdoor, the Croc Center, and then there's all of these other water parks out there, and there's
Wet and Wild.
Yeah.
So there's just tons of stuff like that. You see a lot of the food truck festivals. We get quite a few of those.
Wait a minute, food truck festival? Somebody sign me up. So everyone from the island's got a food truck, comes over here, and you guys
food truck festivals
have a day. We should have one more often. How often is that one? You got to sign me up for that one.
Yeah, no, we do. We have all of that. So I think you're going to see stuff start to creep, and it's happening already. So we're trying to get some of that information. You'll start seeing it on our website. I just had someone hired on to help me get that information up and going. So it's going to be fun. We have fun times out on our side.
Well, Kiran, it sounds like fun, and I'm hoping that the next fun activity that you and the chamber, the next one that comes out, I get invited so I can come out and have sample some food, as long as food's going to be involved. No, I'm kidding. But no, because I want to try some of the east side west side goodies, and all the things to share there. Yeah, I love the sounds of the workforce, events that you're having too, and different things. It sounds like there's a real energy that's starting out there that may reach critical mass here pretty soon and sort of take over, but it still seems like it needs some clear guidance and leadership. So best of luck in your efforts to partner with the city and county, and continuing to expand your folks' vision out there for Kapolei and the greater area there.
Thank you so much, David. And thank you for having me today. And thank you for sharing about the West Side and about the Kapolei Chamber and how we're doing it. I'm happy to be here and happy Aloha Friday.
Yes, it is Friday and it's the weekend. And so everybody enjoy. And Kiran, thank you so much. Aloha, mahalo, and ahui ho.
Ahui ho. All right. Take care. Aloha.
Take care.
Make sure to subscribe to Hawaii Boss and follow us on social media at Hawaii Boss Podcast at the links in the description. We'll see you soon in the boss's office.